Okay, welcome back. Third block before the networking lunch. This block has the title Building Livable Cities. If we want something new, we must do something different. Do we have the courage to implement new ideas? Here, both the US and the Nordics will present projects exploring design-driven innovations. How do we want to live in the future? And how can architecture drive development? To set the stage and lead us through the third block, I want to introduce Jessica Becker. She's architect, SAR, MSA, and project coordinator at WoodCity. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Marcus. Thank you so much. I'm really excited about being here today, discussing this topic. It's really important. And I'm going to lead you through this third block. And like Marcus said, it's about livable cities. This is really important, not only designing cities for sustaining climate change and other challenges, but also involving the community in that work. So here today, we're going to be presenting 4 interesting examples of design and architecture as a driving force for change and for innovation. And since we're talking about design-driven innovation, I wanted to kind of talk about what the definition really is, if you don't already know. It's a process that focuses on the user perspective. So we're talking about involving the people that are actually going to be living and using our cities. We have 4 presentations, short presentations. The 2 first are Swedish architects, Swedish projects. And the 2 last presentations are going to be American speakers and American examples and projects, and then we're going to take a panel discussion after that. So, firstly, I would like to welcome Robert Schmitz, who's an architect at White Architects, on the stage, to present Sara Cultural Center. Welcome.
Yeah, this is me. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very thrilled to be on this stage as well. And I'm going to dive in and show you an example from Sweden, how we implement sustainable, thank you. How we implement or one project that has had a huge impact of one small city in the northern part of Sweden. Mass timber has emerged as one of the most sustainable solutions for building structures. Realizing this unprecedented complex building with a mixed use and a high rise of 20 stories, Sara Cultural Center broadens the applications of a full timber construction and proves that timber is viable in any building type. This project has become a showcase, inspiring others and paving the ways in our collective transitions towards carbon neutrality, and also a new landmark for the city of Skellefteå. So it's been up and running for about 2 years, opening in 2021. This is a cultural and hub combined with a hotel and a conference center. And this is a result of a public-private initiative and the key strategy for the municipality to become a more attractive region with a target to grow from 70,000 up to 100,000 inhabitants over the next 10 years. So a little bit about Skellefteå's location. It's the same latitude as Dawson City. So it's quite far up north in Sweden, and with abundance of sustainable forestry. And that's partly why Skellefteå is where it is. With a long tradition of timber heritage, but also with the modern timber technology and a lot of timber industries that has developed this in Sweden during the last 20 years. And Skellefteå was quite early on in developing a timber strategy, promoting sustainable construction in all aspects, and they aspire to lead the sustainable ambitions in Europe and become the most sustainable municipality. So they embraced timber in the construction and developed this. Academia, business, and municipality were working together in collaboration in order to create a more sustainable community. And this was also an addendum into the competition brief that was launched in 2015 for this project. This deciding that they wanted to revitalize the city by creating culture and empower the community in a certain way. This was anchored politically and grown from citizens' dialogue, where people they asked the people in Skellefteå what they needed to actually stay in this city and thrive. The competition site is it was an empty plot in the city center next to the main square and the new train station. So this was going to be the most central plot in the entire city, which now was more of a backside. But in our proposal, we wanted to create to be this vibrant hub that interacted into the city. So for us, this was more than just a venue for fine arts and culture. This was a cultural workshop where people could meet, a new meeting place for the people in Skellefteå, but also for people in visiting Skellefteå. So the last image was very nice, but this is how it looks like every day, with the non-programmed spaces that people can come in and meet and have. This is a youth rock group that had a lunch performance here. I recently when I was visiting. And the concept for this building is that all the functions in the building get less space of their own, but they can use the entire building so that they can use and share spaces. And this is also something for collaboration, and which has worked out quite well. In the heart of this project, we have 6 stages for performing arts, and this is the biggest or the greatest one, 1,200 seats, and this is a world record, the world's largest theater in timber, where everything from the seats to the balconies and to the acoustic panels are made from solid timber. We're showcasing timber throughout the entire project, working with material optimization, showing how we are really assembled all these prefab elements, and hopefully trigger an interest in timber construction in the end. And working with all the bare loadings vertically is made from timber. So we shortened the production time about a year of using timber in this very central part of the town, giving the people a new perspective, overlooking their own city with new public functions on top, like this restaurant and a rooftop spa. In conclusion, Sara Culture Center has a profound impact of the city of Skellefteå. It's not only provided a space for cultural activities, but also contributed to the city's sustainable efforts and quality of life improvements, with over 3,000 new jobs in the green energy sector for the last 2 years. Sara Culture Center has garnered significant recognitions worldwide, and Time magazine has distinguished Skellefteå as one of the world's greatest places to be in 2022. So this is one building which a lot of impact. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Robert. This is really a great example of a building, a project really at the forefront, technically and architecturally. Thank you so much. Take a seat. And we're going to welcome up our next speakers. We actually have 2. They're going to be presenting the project Wisdome in Stockholm, Johan Oscarson and Astrid Stenberg. This is also another example of a wonderful project also at the forefront, kind of showing what is possible with timber building and architecture and design. So welcome.
Thank you. The mic? Yeah, okay, sorry. I'm confused. I was like, I don't have a microphone, but I do. Hello. Fantastic to be here, and I'm going to be like super short before this main actor comes on stage. And I'm representing National Museum of Science and Technology, Astrid Stenberg. I'm an architect, but in this case, the client. The museum is located in the King's property, National City Park, really close to the city center. Now being truly a part of being integrated in the city in a new way, more like a central park of Stockholm. The Wisdome project is part of us wanting to be a bit more active in the present. We are not the specialists. You all here today are the specialists, and it's fantastic to listen to you. We facilitate the meeting between the young and the academia and the business. So we turned 100, and when the museum started, we were in quite the same place as today, with huge challenges ahead. So Wisdome is symbolically visualizing innovation in a very beautiful way, with the crying need of competence and inspiring young people to read technology and to learn about your world, the world around you, makes it easier to be part of the world and to contribute. And I also want to tell you all that talking about innovation gives hope. So it's not like we need them, yes, but we need also to tell what's happening. And this is a national initiative made possible by first fund by Knut and Alice Wallenberg. And there's 5 domes totally landed on 5 different places in Sweden, and they landed totally different. And what they all have in common is this 360 surrounding projection screen. And why is this so important? It's because visualizing is such a powerful tool of how to learn about the world around you. And this complexity now, hearing you all talk about this complexity and going for a visual travel into space or into the body makes it so much easier to understand scale, relation, and abstract information. So I'll give this to you.
Thank you very much. Yes, I will try to give just a short glimpse of this fantastic project. One could say this is about pushing the boundaries. It's about explore the possibilities in timber construction, but it's also about developing and finding a way to emphasize and revitalize the whole museum, Tekniska. It started off with a competition, 2019, and the main sponsor, Stora Enso, which is a big forestry industry in Sweden, Finland, they asked us to use their new solid timber systems. So we were locked to use only their standard products. So from the design process, we kind of captured here the concept that we came to a conclusion of. And it's about, sorry, I was missing one slide here. But anyway, this building is situated in the courtyard to the museum. And since it's a listed building or a cluster of listed buildings, we had to be very respectful to that surrounding. So we wanted to keep the facades very low. And the dome itself is kind of fixed to its size, meaning it's a fairly high volume, 4 stories high. So we ended up with this concept to have low facades and to encapsulate the dome inside. So you will enter into this new building from the inside normally, and then you will see the whole dome. And to be able to construct this particular organic shape, we had to look back to learn from the history. And this is a beautiful example of a fantastic structure in timber. It's a timber grid shell structure from the 70s. It's Fray Otto and the building is the Multihalle in Mannheim. So we wanted to do something like this, but adapt it to our new requirements. This is just a temporary structure. That's why it's very light. So to make this happen, we had to work with the very best structural engineers and contractors within timber industry. So we ended up in Switzerland, partnering with Blume Lehmann, and they come up with this idea of a structural concept for this organic shape and the beam structure. And this is an early example from the 18th century from Swiss structural engineer Grubermann. So the concept is using standard boards of LVL, which is laminated veneer lumber, and do that in multi-layers. So it's in total 25 layers of these boards. It's thousands of unique pieces in wood, and they are all digitally fabricated and produced and installed in this protected environment by this huge tent. So you can see all the components. This is the second layer. But since this project also was a project to promote timber buildings, we also wanted to show the possibility of the material in all different situations and applications. So even the roof is cladded in timber, and this is Nordic hard pine. It links to the traditional buildings in this surrounding area. This is an example of that. So in this respect, we kind of link the traditional craftsmanship within timber industry with the future of construction, timber construction. And the last image.
I don't know. I mean, what I have to say now is more like what we will talk about maybe a little bit, what this will contribute with. So, but it's a technical object in itself at the Museum of Science and Technology. So you can visibly experience innovation, even if you understand it or not. And I feel in real time on site that it opened doors in people's mind, and I hope it's inspiring. I feel it inspires. Maybe finish there now, yes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Take a seat. Thanks for showcasing this beautiful building, which is definitely an example of the opportunity of mass timber, and also a beautiful example of modern handicraft, I think. And I would like to discuss that a little bit more later. But now we're going to be changing perspectives a little bit. We've looked at two beautiful examples and one-off projects, but now we're going to be talking maybe about wood building or timber building in a little bit larger scale. The title is called Tall Timber, Urbanization Meets Optimization, and I would like to welcome Lisa Podesto, who's at Lend-Lease, and she's going to be talking a little bit more about mass timber building, but from another perspective as a distributor and developer, and also more industrially built solutions like modular building and prefab. So welcome, Lisa.
How do I get my slides up? Sorry. Okay, so while we're waiting for the slides, the technical stuff. So just a correction, I spent the last 7 years working for Lend-Lease, a global development and construction firm really focused on sustainable communities in major cities all over the world. And I'm not talking to you today about a specific project, but really about an approach that kind of capitalizes on a couple of benefits to mass timber. So we all recognize that we have a cost problem, we have a productivity problem, and we have a carbon problem, right? And the beauty of mass timber is that it offers this holistic solution to all three of these simultaneously. As a developer, we have recognized, as a development community, we've recognized that there is a large portion of project costs that need a major overhaul, right? 80% of the projects, over 60% is hard costs on a project, and 20% is soft costs, including design, permitting, so on and so forth. And basically, there's three general areas or silos of productivity changes that mass timber can contribute to. I'm going to talk to you just a little bit really quickly about what these silos are. And they all contribute to overall industrializing the construction process, right? So number one, design cycling. A lot of, so first I'm talking a little about design cycling in general. It takes a long time for a project to go from concept to actually being permitted, right? You lose 2, 3, 4 years sometimes in that process. And how much has changed from a technology perspective from when you had the concept to when you get the opportunity to build it. Not just, and then there's the actual time you have on site, which is, again, another 1, 2, 3 years, depending on the scale of the project. And then there's the idea of like, what can we do across all of these silos? We were talking about digital twins earlier in the transportation realm, and digital twins are a participant here. So one of the, I think, new concepts that we're trying to bring to industrialized construction is the fact that we need to stop thinking about just how to design for manufacture and assembly in a manufacturing realm and using components, building more off-site and in a factory, but now also bringing the factory idea to the job site. And when you think about it from that perspective, what does it change about what you decide to build off-site and how you decide to build it, right? Because a lot of the products that we're seeing from a construction perspective that we are able to procure and buy and that people are making in a factory because it's easy to make it in a factory isn't what I would have asked for if you wanted me to have a factory on site, right? So this is kind of like a new lens to look at industrialized construction through. Now, how does this relate to mass timber in particular? Mass timber is an amazing chassis for a highly componentized structure. It is because, number one, it's using large pieces that are automated and assembled and manufactured in highly automated factories, which is unique because in a lot of construction factories, it's more like shed construction. There's a lot of assembly that's taking place. Mass timber in particular, it can actually be fabricated in a very standardized way, or manufactured in a very standardized ways, and then fabricated to be very customized, which really makes it great, a great medium. In addition to the fact that there's these large pieces, which makes the on-site assembly go very fast and quick, it's a very stable material, and it also has, because it's being fabricated with CNC machines, it's very accurate. So you can have very high levels of prefabrication for other components as well. There's a lot of on-site synergies with other components, such as prefabricated facades, bathroom pods, wet walls, a lot of other construction innovation pieces. And there's also off-site synergies, right? Because you're doing all of this pre-planning for this prefabricated structure that is, if you're doing all of that pre-planning, why wouldn't you use it for other components as well? And there's a lot of companies that are basically utilizing mass timber as this chassis for a kit of parts approach. The business models all vary, but there are, I would say, I can think of like 7 or 8 companies right now that are have varying platforms using mass timber with highly componentized project delivery because it holds so much opportunity. I don't know how many of you are familiar, you may not be from the construction industry, but there was a report written by the McKinsey Group that basically identifies all of the reasons that construction is such a low productivity market and why there's been so little innovation in it in general. And when you go through and you look at the 7 principles that they highlight for how and why you would what you would need to do to make the industry more productive, mass timber hits every single slot. And in general, they believe that there's somewhere between 27 and 38% cost savings in particular if you're able to capitalize on all of these productivity opportunities. So I guess I'm going to leave you with just a sustainability thought here, which is that in all the projects that I've supported globally, life cycle assessment right now is the de facto for measuring for a building's sustainability. And I would challenge that I think that it is not, it doesn't tell the whole story in particular, because you don't get, if you have to take a full building life cycle approach, you may not see a lot of the other value, which is the carbon storage, the short-term carbon storage potential of a city that is built in mass timber. And in addition to that, what are you, by having more timber products and having somewhere to put them, what are you creating an opportunity for in terms of terrestrial carbon on the landscape? So I guess in leaving, this is specific to tall timber and high density. It doesn't have to be specific, but this concept works very well for high density urban living. We have a lot of opportunity. We're going to be doing a lot of building in cities over the next 15, 20 years. And so there's a lot of opportunity for to exploit this innovation here.
Thank you so much, Lisa. I think this is a great example of how mass timber, we're talking a lot about design-driven innovation, but mass timber is such a great example of how that we can use that to work for us. So I would like to, for our last speaker, welcome Andrea from San Jose City, Andrea Iona from San Jose City. Interesting here is that I heard that Lend-Lease actually did a project on affordable housing in San Jose, so we have a great, interesting connection here. But Andrea is going to be talking about downtown transportation and street moves. So this is a little bit more of the perspective of inviting community, involving community in the process, actually the design process for a new future livable city. So welcome, Andrea.
Thank you very much. So unlike my colleagues here, I don't have an actual project to show you, but we have an idea of a street project in which we want to use a lot more of the architectural thinking and modular thinking into it as we're thinking of more sustainable streets in San Jose. So like many cities in the US, San Jose is very suburban-like. We have a downtown core, but in that downtown core, the majority of people travel by car. We have very bold goals to kind of like reverse that trend. We want to be carbon neutral by 2030, and we want to have a mode shift goal of 88% by 2050. That is the majority of people walking and biking in San Jose. So we have a lot of area plans to try to deliver these goals. One of them is the downtown transportation plan. And when we thought about that, we embarked in a very large and ambitious community engagement process in which we went out to the communities, used user personas to try to figure out how the built transportation environment responds to people, to different people's needs. And one of the strategies that came out of that downtown transportation plan was the implementation of mobility hubs to facilitate first last mile connections for people and a more seamless transfer between different modes of transportation. So what is a mobility hub? The way that we've seen mobility hubs played out in the US is pretty much like a very nice location where you have like a large parking area where you have different modes together. So what we were trying to think about is how do we do mobility hubs in a way that respond not just the needs of the people that are traveling, but the needs of the people that have to live with the mobility hubs nearby. Right? What kind of hubs do we install in different urban landscapes? Is it like a super hub? Is it like a micro hub? And what kind of added amenities or services those hubs we have to have to serve a broader spectrum of members of the community. So with that in mind, we developed some sort of like typology of hubs. Oh, sorry. And two of the main hubs that we wanted to develop first are on San Fernando Street, which is right across San Jose State University, near City Hall, a very sort of like downtown core area. And we thought about that and another small hub nearby that would connect the downtown area of San Jose with Caltrain, BART station that's coming into that area as well, high-speed rail probably in the future. So we decided to go with those two hubs and start thinking about, what kind of elements those hubs would have to serve communities, and how can we design those spaces in a way that really makes sense. So we partner with Street Moves Initiative and Lumberg Design Architects, and we started thinking about, what kind of criteria, what kind of elements do we want to have on those hubs. And this is just so you have an image of the downtown core area of San Jose. So that very red area is what we call the downtown core, the blue area, the extended core, and all of the numbers around are all of the districts that we have in the city. So it's a very sprawled city, and what we're trying to do is create this very pedestrian, bike-friendly downtown that we could slowly spread to other districts as well. So what you see here on the left is an image of the current conditions of that space where we would install one of the hubs. And what you see on the right is that first visioning exercise that we did with the help of Street Moves. So we thought about what are the sort of like the constraints of our infrastructure, and we started thinking about how can we do something that is not so permanent. So the city has been exploring already with something that we call quick build, which is a way for us to reclaim a little bit of our street space for other street users that are vulnerable residents that are not having the right share of space. But with this, what we're trying to think about is how do we kind of like place something that serve those communities, and at the same time, we can change with time, right? So, and that's kind of like the thinking that we have for these hubs. In terms of timber usage, it's not a very readily available resource for us in San Jose. Concrete is always easier to get. But we're trying to think about what other materials, including timber, we could use as part of those modular aspects. So maybe the platform where the hub would be installed is concrete, but maybe some of the other elements are modular and could change depending on the needs of communities in that area. This is another example of an image of how we imagine the other hub right across San Jose State University. And this is very early stage in the planning process. And I think one of the most critical aspects of this is now that we have a preliminary design ideas of something that is feasible, I think our most important step is how do we create a sort of like community-driven design process in order to create hubs that really serve those different residents and most vulnerable residents as well. So this is two hubs that we're planning right now, but we have a network of 20 hubs or so that we want to deploy in our downtown core area. Again, very close to rail, bus, and a lot of other important places in the downtown. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Andrea. I think this is an interesting example to see how the county or the city can actually work for change, basically. So now we have our panelists in place. We're going to start a discussion here about the topic. I would also like to open for questions from the audience. We haven't had any today, but if you do have any questions, I would be happy to let you in and ask them. But to start off, microphones might be a good idea. Are these all on?
James one.
Okay, great. So we've had a showcase of several different examples on how design and the design process can actually innovate for this transformation and change towards a more sustainable city and society. A little bit different perspectives, because in the first two examples from Sweden, they were one-off. It was individual buildings basically, and in the last example, we're talking about city planning. But what I want to ask you to start off with is how you feel design and architecture can be a driving force and actually play an important role for this transformation and change in sustainability, and not only climate and environment, which is maybe obvious with mass timber, with carbon capture and so on, but also social aspects involving community, which you were talking about, Andrea. I wanted to start with asking you, Robert, with Skellefteå, because, like I said, it's one example of a building that has actually changed the whole city or affected the whole city.
Yes, for the Sara Culture Center was really anticipated by the community, since there has been I think there was like the story behind it it starts from 2012, where people really said that we need to change something in the city in order for people to stay. So I think that's one of the reasons why everything went so smoothly. Also, that everyone was getting back this target or ambition, I would say. So it's not only the design of the actual project, but the idea of creating this hub for the people was really important.
And also I've heard that, if you look at, that's for the community itself in Skellefteå, but it's also increased the attractiveness from externally too. There's a lot of, there's been a lot of interest in looking at the building, and I heard some number about 6 million hotel nights that are directly linked to mass timber building in Skellefteå as a tourist attraction.
I travel there every second week to talk about it in front of numbers of people. And so it's become, I don't think they really understood the impact of this building, but they really wanted this destination for the region of Skellefteå. And once we were talking about and trying to convince them that we also should do this in timber because of the region's closeness to timber, this was a driving force for everyone to get around this and to work with sustainability and use this project as a reference for many other types or typologies of construction.
And then I have to ask Johan and Astrid too. Have you seen something similar here? Now, the Wisdome opened just recently, so it hasn't had as much time maybe. But how do you see on the impact on Stockholm as a city, but also kind of being at the forefront and having an impact in a bigger perspective?
Yes, the project is kind of extreme, as you might see in the images. It draws quite a lot of attention from both the industry itself, architects, of course, structural engineers, but also from the public, I would say. People are very curious about this peculiar building. And we have been very open, and the museum had a really nice approach during the building phase to open up the building and show it as a pedagogical example. So it already started when the building site was opened, really. that we had a lot of tours speaking about the building, speaking about the process, and speaking about the possibilities of timber. So in a way, it's very different, of course, from Sara Culture House in Skellefteå, but it has also similarities in this, that it's pioneering the timber construction.
Do you have anything to add, Astrid?
Just adding that the scale, it's very grandiose, but it still connects in a very human scale. I mean, talking about creating what design can do, it's a very, latest innovation, but it still creates a new kind of, it's handicraft, new technique makes handicrafts kind of tactile room possible. And it's very taking care of the people visiting in a way that's, I think, it's interesting, and it's kind of rare in modern architecture sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, this is an interesting aspect, is actually this highly technological production of a mass timber building, how highly technical it is. At the same time, you have this opportunity to be more individualized and actually to give it this feeling for detail and tactility, and in another way that we haven't done for many years. I think we are kind of have the opportunity here to come back to that, to more detail in architecture and design. But I want to also ask you, Lisa, then, we're talking about the value and the benefits of mass timber structures and construction and industrialized methods. You mentioned something about, because mass timber can seem and is quite expensive in some aspects on the one hand, but on the other hand, you're talking about the bringing down the costs by optimizing on the benefits of mass timber building. So there are so many other benefits that actually have to be considered as value in a mass timber project. Can you add on that?
Yeah. So from a cost perspective, the general impression is that mass timber buildings will cost you 2 to 5% more. Obviously, if you're doing, very specialized, like demonstration type buildings, you're not really comparing those costs to what it would have been otherwise, because it's an art piece in addition to having a function. But in the residential world, cost is driving projects, period, right? So there are a lot of ways to bring down the cost of mass timber. And this is what I think the design community is really trying to wrap their arms around right now. And it's because it's a very multidisciplinary product, right? It's not just providing the structure, like steel or concrete would, but it's often providing aesthetic, it's providing fire resistance, it is impacting layouts and in a way, and structural typologies in a way that designers are not familiar with, because in order to take advantage of, the span capability at an economy and get the visual representation that you want, or how much you want to see of it, it takes a lot of experimentation. So I think you need a guide, from my perspective, to help you navigate for designers that are doing this new, you need a guide to tell you these are good decisions and these are bad decisions. So anyway, it needs to be a collaboration and a community of people that are helping kind of advance the utility aspect of mass timber, not just the beauty and carbon value.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that connecting to the community perspective and city planning, urban planning, obviously mass timber has a lot of benefits there, but what is your take on mass timber as part of these mobility spaces and other additions to the city landscape?
I think we need to be a little bit more creative about the way we think about materials in the public realm. When we think about transportation infrastructure, is typically concrete, right? There is not a lot of room for a lot of architecture into that. And what we're trying to do with the network of mobility hubs in downtown area is to use architecture and perhaps use timber as a way to create prototypes so we can do a more in-depth user experience analysis of the space and think about, additional materials probably in our case, because timber is not readily, affordable and available in the transportation infrastructure cost landscape. That is something that I think we're keeping in mind for this specific project, to be a little bit more open-minded about how we can incorporate alternative materials into the construction of these types of infrastructure pieces.
Yeah, and also I would like to ask you just to kind of talk a little bit about, you talked about translating the needs of stakeholders, kind of creating a model that is for the process to make it kind of more including and accessible for everybody in the community, even children. I mean, how does that look?
Yeah, typically for a transportation infrastructure project, the community engagement and stakeholder engagement process is very straightforward, and you're either meeting the needs of a few or justifying the decisions that you're making with the results of engagement. And we're trying to shift that from our broader planning, from our area planning and our overall citywide transportation planning, as how do we bring that in a more conscious manner. We're very much aware that our transportation infrastructure has been inequitably distributed in the city. Typically, our most vulnerable communities, like children or the elderly or lower income communities, don't enjoy the type of urban form that other communities in the city enjoy. So acknowledging that, we're trying to figure out a process that is a little bit more inclusive. And I think that is where perhaps having a physical prototype that people can try, that a child could interact with, is something that we could potentially use to arrive to a more egalitarian and accessible space. I think we're in that process. There's other tools, of course. There are technological tools that could be used, but we're trying to be a little bit more creative about how we reach, different members of the community. Again, not just the people that are taking transit, for example, and using those spaces, but also people that live there, that have to live with those spaces for the long term.
Okay, great. And I'm also a little bit interested in hearing about the differences between Sweden and the US in this perspective. Also, the perspective of collaborating between cities and counties and municipalities and in Sweden. Because I see this as one of the key factors of actually meeting this challenge in the best way, obviously, is collaborating. So, Robert, could you tell me a little bit about Skellefteå? Do you know anything about how they work with? They have a wood building strategy, and they.
So a lot of the drivers in Sweden are the municipalities and the public sector, but it also becomes of the lobby industry from the forestry. Together, they have different organizations like Timber Cities, Trästad, that have developed, as you say, guidelines how to work with timber in a more efficient way. So we have since '94, when the ban was released for building more than 2 stories in timber, we have worked with these questions quite hard, and both from a political level or governmental level, but also down to through the municipalities. Guiding others, and now the private sector is tagging along this due to the fact that you need to work with lowering your carbon emissions, basically.
Okay, great. And Lisa, could you give us a perspective on the American example?
I would say that jurisdictionally, mass timber's come a long way recently in the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. And I think San Jose is actually a great example of an authority having jurisdiction that has said we have to be open-minded about innovation and new materials. And even though we have an obligation to the people to make sure that they're safe, and we're supposed to be following these prescriptive codes, how can we, allow higher levels of componentization and industrialized construction and new materials like mass timber? And when large, like open-minded cities do this, the smaller cities around them follow suit. They don't want to be, it's hard to be the first one to kind of think outside the box and start allowing things. And then I would say in general, it is equally as hard for designers operating in multiple cities to kind of navigate this world of like, oh, this city is okay with this, but not okay with this. This city, so then you can't get the same repeatability of designs or the lessons learned that you've made headway on from one design concept to another. That becomes difficult. But I would say in general, I'm really excited about the way that cities are embracing this, especially in the Bay Area.
And that's great. And Andrea, I have to ask you then, do you collaborate with neighboring cities in the Bay Area?
Yes, we do, as much as we can, for a variety of projects, not just these type of projects. But I would say that one of the challenges that we have as cities is, when we go around and ask our residents, how do you like your city to look like? And they would describe a linear park, a national park. Everybody wants clean air, greenery, shade, you name it. And then you tell them that you need to remove parking to realize that vision. And then everybody goes up in arms, right? So one of the main challenges really is, how do you continue to serve those communities, the needs that they have today, while you keep on paving the road for what you know that they're going to need in the future, right? We're trying to decarbonize. We're trying to become that green, beautiful city, right? So the idea of this modularity, for example, for the mobility hubs is to provide a little bit of that. What is it that the community needs today, and that we can see that can be transformed in the future, right? So it's a very difficult challenge and balance, and of course it has political cost as well. So we try to collaborate as much as possible with other jurisdictions, and while we are trying to be sensible with our communities as well.
Great. So changing the world one project at a time. Okay, I just want to open up for some questions now. We have just a couple of minutes left. Do we have any questions from the audience? Everybody's ready for lunch. I just want to end off here. I would like to ask everybody across the panel, since we're talking about sustainable and livable cities, what do you see that this livable city is supposed to entail? What is it? Because we're talking about this future vision of what this city is supposed to look like. So I just want to ask all of you, what do you see? We'll start with you, Astrid.
Yes, and it was a thought regarding that we talked about the need of speed in the overall process, and that a lot of money and big systems, and that makes it like super important and quite hard work in the little small scale, 1-to-1 in each area, connecting, and as architect designer, not underestimating. Often in different areas, you have a budget and you want to do a city existing project, and then after 1 year, everyone leaves and nothing exists. So you always connect with someone in the area, someone continuing the project, working there. So I think it's how you start, and then you of course need the big scale and so on. But I'm a bit afraid of this taking care of situation.
Okay, thank you. Robert.
Yeah, spaces where people can meet equally, and spaces where people can thrive, I think. The cities are for the people. So that's how we should design them.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think, I mean, starting from the human being rather than from planning the parking is a good starting point. I think we've seen a very strong development of sustainable architecture in Sweden recently. We've been working with mass timber construction for about 12 years, but just now the first ones are really getting built. It's been so many obstacles during the way, and what's really important is that we all play in the same team. So we kind of push this development further on, and I think now it's happening.
Thank you. Lisa?
Oh, wow, this is a hard question. I am going to deviate and just say that I think we all recognize that housing is that we're in a housing crisis. And from my perspective, it's going to take a diverse set of solutions to do this. I think in terms of systems, people were talking earlier, like, we've got to change our mental health system, like that is crucial to helping homeless population. It's not just building more housing. We're also going to have to find, adopt multi-generational living, because the truth is that we're in such a housing deficit that even if we got really fast and really good and we were able to do all the things that everybody on the stage knows that we could do, it still wouldn't be enough fast enough to address it. So I guess it goes beyond this panel discussion.
Definitely. And Andrea?
I'm going to say I agree with all of the previous comments and add that if we start thinking more about the human scale for our built environment and and recognize through that we have common but differentiated experiences, right? Because that's very difficult to imagine for us right now if everyone's driving a car, right? And they're going to remove parking and that affects me. It's hard for me to imagine how that will benefit someone else. But when you have more shared spaces at the human scale, I think that is important to recognize, right? What does a sustainable future means for my neighbor, not just myself? And I think that is a very important piece of it. It's not just thinking about, the beauty for the city and how enjoyable the space is, but also recognizing how different people use the space, right? And so the day that the parking spot is removed across the street from my business or my house, maybe I think, well, now there's a bike lane where I can see this 2-year-old drive his bike safely, and I will be at peace with that. So I think that's a very key, important part of it.
Okay, well, thank you. I think that was a great ending note, and I hope that we can continue this dialogue somehow and kind of have an exchange of knowledge and experience and best practice and so on to kind of as a driving force forward, basically. So thank you so much, panelists and speakers, and thank you, audience. And that's it.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, so this was the final block of today. I hope that you talked to someone you didn't know and that you learned something new. We want to, of course, thank you all for your participation and your engagement. But we would also like to address our deepest gratitude to, of course, all of our speakers, panelists, organizers, and partners. And today was led by Vinnova, Business Finland, NASDAQ, Viable Cities, Future Mobility, Soft Landing North, and Swedish Institute. So I hope that we will see you later today. If not, we'll see you at next year's Bifrost Summit. Now, please join us for the networking lunch.